Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. It is exactly 9:24 a.m. and we are now going to be talking with Professor Adam Mohamed. He is the head of internal medicine at Charlotte Maxeke, Johannesburg Academic Hospital. He has started a petition to call on the government to exempt all hospitals from load shedding. Um, all I can say is my support and sympathies for Professor Mohamed and all hospitals throughout the country. A couple of months ago, we spoke to Professor Mohamed, and that was another issue regarding the inefficiencies at state hospitals, the pilfering, and all of the drama that state hospitals has been undergoing for the past so many years. Now, Professor Mohamed and all other state hospitals are sitting with another headache, and that is load shedding. How is this impacting on their lives and the lives of their patients? Professor Mohamed, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program. And I certainly don't want to be in your shoes.
Assalamu alaikum, Jazakallah for having me on your show. And I think the important aspect is it's a challenge where we are working. COVID, fire, COVID, water, flooding, and now load shedding for Charlotte Maxeke has been quite an intense burden on the healthcare workers and on patients at that hospital. And it's a tertiary quaternary hospital, so the level of care that we give is not like other hospitals. We do things slightly different from the other hospitals, including certain services are not available at Helen Joseph and Baragwanath Hospital and only available at Charlotte Maxeke. And when you have load shedding, these critical high energy services, for example, like cardiothoracic surgery, transplantation issues, dialysis, all of this impacts directly on patients. And I know there's a lot of conversations about sorry about that. There's lots of conversations about we have generators. We don't have generators to supply power throughout the hospital. It's only certain areas. And our hospital is quite old, and the layout of the electrical thing and the wards that we have are not aligned to the needs of the hospital in 2022. So there is a potential for harm and damage to occur to patients' lives and well-being, and it is happening. And it's happening across all healthcare institutions and not just Charlotte Maxeke. And I think healthcare workers are tired.
Professor, let me ask you, you mentioned generators, and I know that most hospitals, private and states, rely on generators during these difficult times that we're experiencing. But it comes at a great cost, does it not? Can the hospital afford to be buying large amounts of diesel to run the generators?
So I think on average we would use, depending on the degree of load shedding, between 800 to 900 liters of diesel.
Ew.
So the costing is anything from 5 to 8 million rands a month. And the question is, where does that money come from? It comes from direct patient care money. Number two, there's challenges of getting diesel supplies. And what we're seeing in the rest of the world, diesel is going to become an issue. And we're not going to be unaffected by that. And we need to have a plan for the future going on. And I must tell you, with the action of so many people in Gauteng and in South Africa, the petition has got to over 41,000. There is a positive communication coming out from the Department of Health and Gauteng Department. And I think on Friday, there's going to be a media outlet with some documents of how the government is going to tackle load shedding in the healthcare facilities. I'm slightly optimistic, the word is slightly, and hopefully we will have a plan of saving the healthcare institutions from being on load shedding schedules, no matter where they are in the country and no matter what level of institution they are. It's not just about my hospital. It's also about primary healthcare clinics, regional and district hospitals. It's the entire healthcare system that patients access need to be exempt. I'm not saying excluded. Excluded gives individual municipalities the choice. I'm saying exempt, which means a law that they must be excluded from load shedding.
Okay, and you're saying this in light of the fact that we've been hearing rumors about embassies and ministerial homes who seem to be excluded or exempt from load shedding. And you are questioning, the life of sick people against these people who live in the lap of luxury.
I 100% stand by that. If there's anyone who's going to be exempt or excluded from load shedding, it must be the vulnerable. It must be those that are critically ill. So, for example, if in an old age nursing home that is looking after critically ill patients, I'm not against us coming up with a solution for them. But for a minister, a politician to be, and history to be protected from load shedding, that's a crime against humanity, and it's a
Absolutely.
violation from the office that from the oath of his office that he's taking. We need to lead from the front. We need to serve first, and sacrifice comes from those at the top first, not from those at the bottom.
Okay, Professor, I just want to digress a bit here, but still to do with your hospital. We know that you suffered quite a setback with the fire that broke out a while ago, and then there was a lot of, there was a lot of talk in the press, in the media, that things were not moving fast enough, not because of you and your administration there, but on the part of government and local municipality regarding making the hospital fit for use. Where do we stand on that matter now? And have the perpetrators ever been brought to book? Because again, there were rumors that it was a deliberate act of arson, possibly, at the hospital, or the fire was deliberately started.
So, just a quick one on the fire. I don't think we have any firm evidence that any action has been taken or any culprits has been arrested regarding the so-called fire and arson. The issue of the report being given to the relevant authorities is still so controversial in that aspect alone. Regarding the delay in our hospital, there were many people from the Department of Infrastructure and Development who were in charge of trying to get our hospital back together, have been suspended for tender and irregular activities. Nothing has been heard about that bunch of people that has been suspended. And that was quite senior members of the DID. We still have lots of people regarding tenders and corruption that are all pending. We don't have much information, or maybe I'm not privy to that, and that's okay because my focus is healthcare. So where are we right now, 18 months down the line? I think gift of the givers, again, needs to be acknowledged for what they've done and what they are doing in the hospital. R&B and the Spire Foundation and people who contributed to that fund must be acknowledged, because they essentially what have been carrying and trying to get the hospital back to where it is. Of note, where we are right now, besides the shambles of parking, I think it's the first time that I can say maybe there's a glimmer of hope, because I see there's a new change from Department of Health and Gauteng Department of Health. There's ring fence allocated budget to fixing up the hospital. I'm seeing active construction happening at the hospital. I'm seeing workers at the hospital. I'm seeing concrete at the hospital. So
Alhamdulillah.
it's the first time in a long time that I think I'm optimistic. But my nature is, I've been burnt quite a number of times. So I'm still a little cautious. But inshallah, with the continuous voicing from media and society and community to keep me accountable, to keep the government accountable, we can get Charlotte and the other healthcare facilities where we need to be. And we need to be creating more healthcare facilities in Gauteng. We haven't increased the number of beds to the degree of how this population has grown. And this is about correcting what we have, but we need a vision of an 8-lane highway, not a 2-lane highway, so that in 2
Absolutely.
years' time, we have a good highway.
Okay, let's also talk about your petition. Do you think that's going to make a difference? Whom is the petition going to, and what sort of, hopefully, response are you expecting?
I think the petition was a representation of not me. It was a representation of healthcare workers, and it's not about me. It's about we all talking about the same thing, and we got over 41,000 members who have signed up the petition. We had the NOSA, we had SAMU, we had the South African Medical Association, we had the Health Professional Council. In 1 week, all talking, and the treatment action campaign, sorry, all talking on the same aspect of healthcare in South Africa. And I think something has happened and they have taken notice. And we're going to see a government response on Friday to a solution to the load shedding in the healthcare facilities. So I think it already has made a difference. There are options available to us beyond this petition. The petition allows us to gather momentum if we need to go down the legal route to force institutions of government to address this issue. But I think logic is prevailing from the Ministry of Health, Gauteng Department, the MEC. They're all responding in a positive way to what we're all seeing and coming up with solutions. Let's wait and see what happens on Friday before we take this any further.
Inshallah. Please indulge me for a minute or two longer if you don't mind. You're
No
difficult
problem.
to pin down, but I do know that you are definitely an activist in your own right as far as medical and the health system is concerned. And I know that you were pretty vociferous with the Dr. Demaya situation at Helen Joseph. Where are we sitting on that matter? Because it wasn't only about Dr. Demaya, it was about state facilities, healthcare facilities, clinics, etc. He just happened to be the person that at that point in time spoke out. But we know that there are huge glaring problems at all of these facilities. Has that matter been resolved? Because the last I heard is that he was back on board, but under difficult circumstances and conditions.
So you're right. From what my understanding, he's not allowed to speak to media. They have gagged him, and he did raise some very pertinent issues. He is back at work with a formal warning, which itself I think is a violation of healthcare workers' rights. He's continuing to do amazing work. I know him personally, and he is a gentle giant of a pediatrician. And what's even more surprising is that he is a gastroenterologist, a pediatric gastroenterologist. Do you know how many of those are there in the country?
I
You'll,
believe
it's
very
not
few
more
or
than my book. Very, very few. And those that are in the government sector are even fewer. So he's a scarce resource and a valuable resource. And I think hopefully with what has happened with Tim, both healthcare workers and Gauteng Department of Health and other healthcare departments need to realize, listen to the message. Don't attack the individual. It's the message that was lost in all of the actions of whoever did whatever, and that needed to stop. And I think everything happens for a reason. And Tim de Meyer's case highlights to us that we still need to be vocal, and our center and our focus for whatever we do must remain patient. The patient must be at the forefront. And if you keep the
absolutely.
patient at the forefront, no harm will come to any doctor, nurse, or healthcare worker that speaks out. It must be the center of everyone's focus if you're in the healthcare industry. Patient first. The MEC of Health, the Minister of Health, the focus must be the patient. Not politics, not the government, not the province or anything, but let's put the patient as number one, and we will be amazing in this country.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of you. If it's just on a positive note, I'd like to end by making a short little statement, and that is, Alhamdulillah, my late mom-in-law was a patient of Charlotte. She was undergoing chemotherapy. This was pre-COVID. I brought her to the hospital on her regular visits, and at that time, I'm talking pre-COVID, about 4 or 5 years ago, commend the staff and the facility. It was amazing. We couldn't have expected better treatment had we gone to a top class private institution. She was very happy. The staff were amazing, and she was very, very well cared for. So Jazakallah very much. I know that if the circumstances are conducive, you guys would be able to do amazing work. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all efforts, and may you guys continue what you're doing from your heart. Shukran so very much for being on the show with us this morning.
Jazakallah,
Assalamu
Ameen.
alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
That was Professor Adam Mohamed talking about the issue around load shedding at hospitals and clinics. Yep, it is an eye opener, is it not? So let's also support them when we go to state institutions. Also understand and realize the work under extremely difficult conditions. It is exactly 9:39 exactly. We have to go and pay the rent. Let's do that. And inshallah, when we come back, we're going to be talking with Mohammed Hussein. He's a UK-based journalist, and we are going to be looking at the Russia-Ukraine situation, how that is impacting on the rest of the world, with Russia imposing with the UK slapping further sanctions on Russia, and then Russia retaliating, and the rest of the world suffering. So all of that and more coming up. Keep me company right here on Salam Media.